You're not bad at setting boundaries. You were never taught they existed. That's not the same thing. Being bad at something implies you tried and failed, but most people who struggle with boundaries didn't fail at learning them. They were raised in a household where the concept simply wasn't modeled. No one demonstrated where one person ends and another begins. No one showed you that you're allowed to say, "This is my space, this is my time, this is my limit, and you cannot cross it." Instead, you learned the opposite, that your space, time, energy, and body were community resources, available to whoever needed them. And refusing access wasn't just rude, it was selfish, unkind, unloving. This is the boundary void, not a boundary that's been crossed, a boundary that was never drawn. There's no line to violate when you were never taught one could exist, and the habits that grew inside that void look so normal you've never questioned them. In this video, we're looking at 10 of those habits, and for each one, we'll name the behavior and the relational cost it's quietly charging you. Because boundaries aren't walls. They're the difference between giving yourself to people and losing yourself to them. Number 1. Someone asks for something and you agree, immediately, without checking with yourself first. Your mouth says yes while your stomach clenches, your jaw tightens, and something inside you whispers, "I don't want to do this." The habit, you override your own physical signals so automatically it doesn't even register as a choice. The yes fires before the body's no can reach your brain. You were trained to bypass your own discomfort to maintain someone else's comfort, and the training was so effective that the override is now seamless. The cost. People learn that your yes means nothing, not because they're exploitative, but because you've made the yes the only answer they've ever heard. And when everything is yes, nothing is chosen. Your agreement stops being a gift and becomes a default, and defaults don't earn respect. They earn assumption. Number 2, people call you when they're falling apart, and you hold space. Every time. For as long as it takes, without limit. The habit. You absorb other people's emotional overflow without time limits, without reciprocation, and without recognizing that you're depleted. The conversation always ends when they feel better, not when you've reached your capacity. And when they hang up, you sit with the residue of their pain on top of your own, with no one calling to ask how you are. The cost. You become the emotional dump, not the person. People come to you for processing, not for connection. The relationship becomes one-directional. Their pain in, your energy out. And the cruelest part is that if you ever try to set a limit, "I can't talk right now," you feel like a monster, because the void taught you that your only value is your availability. Number 3, someone asks something personal and you answer, not because you want to, because it didn't occur to you that "I'd rather not say" was an option. The habit. A coworker asks about your relationship. A family member asks about your finances. A near stranger asks something that makes your skin crawl, and you answer. Fully. Because the boundary that says "that's private" was never installed. Your personal information was always accessible. In your household, there was no door that closed, no topic that was off limits, no version of "that's mine and you don't get it." The cost. People have access to parts of you that weren't offered. They were taken. And you feel vaguely violated after these conversations, but can't name why. The why is this. You shared something you didn't consent to sharing. Not because they forced you, but because the muscle for saying, "No, that's mine," was never built. And the pattern repeats. Each time you answer a question you didn't want to answer, you feel a little smaller afterward, a little more exposed, a little more accessed. Not because the question was harmful, because the absence of the boundary left you unprotected in a moment that required protection. Number 4. You are endlessly available to everyone at any hour. for any reason. The habit. You drop your own plans to help someone who didn't ask urgently. You stay late because a coworker needs something. You cancel your evening because a friend wants to talk. Your time has no fence around it. It's an open field that anyone can walk into at any moment. And you let them, because in the void, your time was never treated as yours. The cost. Your own needs get permanently deprioritized. The things that matter to you, rest, creative time, solitude, self-care, are always the first things sacrificed, not because they don't matter, because the boundary that protects them doesn't exist. And the people who take your time don't think they're taking. They think you're giving, because you've never once said, "This time is mine." Number 5, a hug you didn't want, a hand on your shoulder that made you uncomfortable, a physical closeness that felt like too much, and you endured it. The habit? Your body's physical boundaries were never respected, or you were never told that physical boundaries were something you were allowed to have. The cheek kiss from the relative, the hug that lasted too long, the contact that made your skin crawl. You endured all of it because refusing felt impossible, because in the void your body wasn't fully yours, it was available. The cost, your body stops being yours. Over time, you lose the reflex to notice when touch is unwanted because the signal has been overridden so many times it stops sending. The discomfort gets swallowed so automatically that you don't recognize it as discomfort anymore. You just feel vaguely wrong after certain interactions and can't identify why. The why is your body trying to tell you something your training taught you to ignore. Number 6. You pick up tasks that aren't yours because it's easier than the conversation required to redirect them. The habit. A coworker doesn't finish their part. Instead of saying, "That's your responsibility," you do it. A partner leaves something undone. Instead of asking them to handle it, you handle it. The energy required to set the boundary feels greater than the energy required to just absorb the work, so you absorb it. Every time. The cost. The workload shifts permanently. What started as helping once becomes the new expectation, and you can't complain because you volunteered. The resentment builds silently, not toward them, but toward yourself, for being unable to say the sentence that would have prevented all of it. That's not mine to carry. Number 7. You're trapped in a conversation that drained you 20 minutes ago, and you're still there, smiling, nodding, present. The habit. You cannot exit a conversation without a legitimate, pre-approved reason. "I need to go" isn't reason enough. You need to be late for something. You need an external excuse. Because simply not wanting to be in the conversation anymore isn't, in your system, a valid reason to leave. Your discomfort isn't a reason. Only external obligations count. The cost. You train people that your discomfort is invisible, that you're always available, always willing, always fine with continuing. And when you finally do leave, exhausted, drained, resentful, nobody knows you were suffering because you performed comfort for the entire duration. The conversation was a prison with an unlocked door you didn't know you were allowed to open. And the irony cuts. You're the person everyone wants at the party because you're always such a good listener. They don't know the listening isn't generosity, it's captivity. You're not staying because you want to. You're staying because leaving without permission feels like a boundary you don't have the right to set. Number 8. You open up to someone and they use it poorly. Dismiss it, minimize it, repeat it to someone else, and you don't say anything. The habit. You practice vulnerability without protection. You share something real, and when it's handled carelessly, you absorb the harm without addressing it. Because the boundary that says, "You don't get to do that with what I gave you," was never modeled. In the void, your emotions were public property. Anyone could handle them however they wanted. The cost. Vulnerability becomes dangerous rather than connecting. Each time your openness is mishandled and you say nothing, you learn that sharing is a risk without a safety net. And eventually, you stop sharing altogether. Not because you chose walls, but because the void didn't teach you that you could be open and protected. That boundaries and vulnerability aren't opposites, they're partners. Number 9. Someone talks to you in a way you'd never allow them to talk to someone you love, and you take it. The habit. There's a double standard running inside you, and it's not in your favor. If a friend told you their partner spoke to them the way yours speaks to you, you'd be furious. If a colleague treated your friend the way they treat you, you'd call it unacceptable. But when it's directed at you, the boundary doesn't activate, because the void taught you that you're the exception. Everyone else deserves respect. You deserve whatever you get. The cost. A double standard where you matter least, and the standard is so internalized you don't even see it as unfair. You see it as accurate. Because in the household where you learned relationships, your needs were always the least important in the room, and that ranking followed you into every relationship since, running silently underneath every moment you accept what you would never accept on behalf of someone else. And if someone pointed this out to you, if they said, "Why do you let people treat you like that?" you wouldn't have a good answer. Because the answer isn't rational, it's architectural. The void didn't give you the blueprint for self-protection, it gave you the blueprint for everyone else's. Number 10. The thread that ties every habit together. You have no clear sense of where your identity stops and someone else's starts. The habit. You absorb other people's moods as if they're your own. You take on their stress, their disappointment, their anger, not empathetically, but osmotically. Their pain becomes your pain. Their crisis becomes your crisis. And you can't tell the difference between what you feel and what you're absorbing from the person next to you. The cost. You lose yourself in every close relationship, not dramatically, but gradually. You morph into what the other person needs. Your opinions shift to match theirs. Your preferences dissolve. Your identity becomes a function of whoever you're closest to. And when the relationship ends, you don't just lose them. You lose the version of yourself that only existed in their proximity. Because without the boundary that separates self from other, closeness becomes absorption. And absorption isn't intimacy, it's disappearance. The boundary void didn't just cost you your limits, it cost you your shape. The outline of who you are, where you end and someone else begins, was never drawn. And without it, every relationship becomes a merging that feels like love, but functions like erasure. If you recognized yourself in these 10 habits, the reframe that matters most is this. You are not bad at boundaries. You're untaught. And untaught is not the same as incapable. A boundary isn't a wall. It isn't aggression. It isn't selfishness. It's information. It says, this is where I end. This is what I can hold. This is what I'm available for, and this is what I'm not. And the people who leave when you start providing that information were only staying for the version of you that had no limits. The ones who stay are the ones who wanted you, not your availability. You don't have to set every boundary at once. You just have to start by noticing the moments when your body says no and your mouth says yes. And in that gap, choose the body. Once. That first boundary. The first time you say, I can't do that, without justification. The first time you leave a conversation because you're done. The first time you let someone be disappointed without apologizing for it will feel wrong. It will feel selfish. It will feel like you're doing damage. You're not. You're drawing a line that should have been drawn for you when you were too young to draw it yourself. At Inner Lens, we trace the lines nobody taught you to draw. If this one resonated, the next video follows a thread from the same root, the subtle signs your childhood made you a people pleaser. It's right here.